Hi, fellow Texas Questers. This is Diane Bays. Welcome to my How Big is Texas podcast. This podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, my amusement, and to tell you a little something about the Lone Star State. Feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on social media at How Big is Texas or on my blog, howbigistexas.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast production. Now let's get started with today's Texas Quest. Hi, I'm Diane Bays, the #1 quester at How Big is Texas and your host for this podcast. Thanks for listening. This is episode number 6. We'll always have Paris. Texas, that is. Welcome and thanks for joining me. I'm coming to you today from the official world headquarters of How Big is Texas, located in my backyard she shed in San Angelo. My husband Dan and I recently celebrated our 23rd anniversary. On the actual date, we were traveling back from a wedding of a family member. Knowing that would be the case ahead of time, we decided to celebrate our day together a week early. In looking at wedding gift ideas for our 23rd year, I found a couple of sites that said we should give each other the gift of silver plate. Needless to say, the silver plate wasn't ever going to be an option because we're not into things like that. Quite frankly, if I have to polish it, I don't own it. Still, wanting to have a special weekend, you can imagine my surprise when Dan told me he wanted to take me to Paris. I could hardly resist his offer. The Eiffel Tower, the pastry shops, the street markets. Oh, did I mention he meant Texas and not France? As the #1 quester for How Big is Texas, I was elated. So we loaded up our 2 rescue dogs, Sadie and Angel, and headed east from our home in San Angelo in west central Texas to Paris in far northeast Texas, only a 5.5-hour drive away. I know people in other states measure by miles or even walking distance to a location, especially if you live in a metropolitan place like New York City. In Texas, however, I found most Texans measure by time in the car. By Texas standards, 5.5 hours isn't a bad drive, or at least it isn't for me. After driving the entire perimeter of Texas, all 3,100 miles, a little drive to Paris was a perfect weekend getaway. Rather than stay at a hotel for our long weekend, we opted for a B&B through the booking engine VRBO. Since we had the dogs with us, we had to find a location that was pet-friendly. Located 16 miles from Paris, the accommodations we found were in the country and aptly named a rustic country hideaway. The space felt like a cabin, but was attached to the homeowner's shop, which was about 50 yards from their house. It offered rustic decorations from deer heads and posed turkeys to wooden walls and tin ceilings. For some, it might have been a bit too rustic, especially with the taxidermied animal heads and bodies staring back at you. But for us, it was just what we needed to enjoy our long weekend celebration. We relaxed on the quiet evenings, watching the starry night skies and appreciating the cool shade with all the oak trees on the property. Having visited Paris a number of times, including when I went through with Morgan and Deborah on our perimeter of tour of Texas, I was familiar with a good part of the town. Looking for a nice breakfast location, we came across the Paris Bakery, located just off the downtown square. Our B&B host had mentioned it when she shared a few things to see and do and places to eat in town. She talked about their wonderful pizza, but since we were there for breakfast, we opted for their French pastries and breakfast sandwiches, including a delicious ham and egg sandwich on sourdough toast, raspberry pecan toast, and an incredible strawberry cream brioche. Their fresh brewed coffee was a perfect drink to top it all off. No trip to Paris is complete without a stop at the Eiffel Tower. Did you know it is the second largest Eiffel Tower in the world? Yes, there are several more. France holds the title of largest and first, for that matter, but the tower in the Lone Star State is probably the most unique, as it sports a giant red cowboy hat at its top. Next door to the Eiffel Tower is the exceptional Red River Valley Veterans Memorial Museum, featuring monuments, conflict walls, static displays, and a ring of honor. This open-air museum is one of the most beautiful tributes to our military that I have ever seen, especially for a community under 25,000 in population. After our breakfast downtown, we walked down the street to the Paris Market Square Farmers Market. It was a bit early in the season for very many fresh fruits and vegetables, but the market was filled with homemade canned goods, plants, and a variety of local businesses. They represented well, including BFT Ranch Beef, Blossom Dairy Milk, Hancock Hill Farms, Cook's Farm and Ranch, Liza's Coffee, Pappy's Peppers, and Paris Natural Farms. The market is open 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays from May through October. A specialty vendor we met named Tim Russell, a former high school shop teacher, made handcrafted pens. Many are made from chala cactus along with exotic woods. One that caught Dan's eye was a bolt-action ink pen made with a .30 caliber replica bullet. You could select the barrel of your choice. You could even purchase a miniature rifle box to put the pen in for safekeeping. Since it was our anniversary, I surprised Dan with his very own. As a Vietnam veteran, he is proud of his service, and I thought it was a unique gift idea. If you're interested in purchasing one of these beautiful handcrafted pens for yourself or a special gift for someone else, visit the website Tim's Pens and More. The rest of our time in Paris, we took leisurely drives along the beautiful countryside. The first time we drove through Paris together a few months ago, Dan asked me if every home in Paris had a pond. Because we live in an area that gets half the rain Paris gets, it was a fair question. Many of the properties we passed by had ponds instead of swimming pools. I suppose it's similar to international visitors coming to Texas and asking if every Texan wears a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. In marketing, I've always been told that if you're not number one, you might not want to mention your ranking. However, if you are Paris, Texas, and you are often compared to your counterpart across the pond in Paris, France, why not say you're the second largest Paris in the world? You also have a great deal in common. You both have an Eiffel Tower. You both have open-air markets. You both have wonderful places to stay. You both have incredible bakeries to satisfy a visitor's appetite. You both have at least one movie with your name in the title. And you both even have a bike race. Paris, Texas has the Tour de Paris, while the French have the Tour de France. All that said, only one of you has the bragging rights to say you're in the Lone Star State. I'm not saying the French location is any lesser because of it, but I'd watch out if I were them. Paris, Texas may be just around the corner in surpassing them in popularity. Now, for some couples, a trip to Paris, Texas might not be as exciting as a trip to Paris, France. But for us, it was the perfect place to celebrate our 23 years together. We had a wonderful time and made great memories. Who knows where we'll end up on our 24th anniversary? There are so many options from which to choose, like Dublin, Athens, Naples, China, Liverpool, Egypt, Florence, Ireland, Italy, Palestine, Trinidad, Moscow, and Turkey, to name a few. How do we choose? Maybe we take an international tour of Texas, since they're all here. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. You can also follow me at How Big is Texas on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. If you like this podcast, please take the time to give us a Texas-sized friendly review. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, in Texas, safe travels.